أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. Amma ba'd, begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in abundant praise, realizing and acknowledging the fact that we can never praise Him in a way that He is truly due praise, and we beseech Him subhanahu wa ta'ala to send His peace and blessings upon our beloved Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, upon his family, his companions, and all of those who tread in his righteous path until the end of time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us all amongst them. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. What I'd like to share with all of you this afternoon, on this blessed day of Jumu'ah, and as we're continuing to experience the world in its current state, is just a brief reflection, inshallah, that of the situation that we're in, not in the way that we've been thinking about it over the last few months, but the situation we're in the way that we classically think about it in the time of the year that we're in. And we're in the summertime, alhamdulillah, but we're also, a month and a half or so away from, a little over a month and a half away from the previous month of Ramadan. And we are very quickly encroaching upon the end of this lunar year. We're very quickly approaching the month of Dhul Hijjah. Right? We're currently, we're about to enter into the last 10 days, the last third or so of Dhul Qa'dah, and these are months that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala declared to be sacred, right? Muharram. That the 4 months, there are 3 that are put together, and there is 1 that is separated. That we have Rajab is the separated month, and 3 consecutive months are 3 months of the Ashur al-Haram, of the sacred months, are put together, and those are Dhul Qa'dah, in which we are currently, Dhul Hijjah, the next month, the month of Hajj, and Muharram, which will come at the beginning of the next year. So what I want us to do is reflect a little bit about, first and foremost, from the time of Ramadan, what improvements have I really made upon myself, and what things that have I been focusing on in this time where many of us were in a situation where, although there might be an external sorts of stressors on us, that there should be some sort of internal push toward salam. There should be some internal push towards rida, towards contentment, and there should be some internal push towards increasing our ability and increasing our abilities in drawing closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So upon this, I wanted to share with you some thoughts that one of my teachers and mentors, he mentioned about a number of ways to find contentment, and primarily focusing on and drawing away from the ayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where he says, "Ana bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub," that verily, right, only by the dhikr, only by the mentioning, the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do hearts find tranquility, or do our hearts tranquil. Tama'nina, tatma'inna, it shares the same root word as tama'nina, which is the position that when we're in our salah, that we're supposed to have in every single, whether when we're in qiyam, when we're standing, when we're in ruku', when we're bowing, when we stand back up from ruku' into qiyam again, and then when we go into sajda, and we go into julus, when we go back into our kneeling, that we're supposed to have at least a brief moment of tama'nina, a brief moment of tranquility. So first and foremost, when we think about the relationship that contentment has specifically with our salah, if we don't find any sort of sakina, if we don't find any sort of tama'nina, totally this total amount of tranquility and peacefulness in our salah, and we think that we have to rush through our salah, then our fuqaha, our legal scholars, they have they have documented that one of the things that we must do is have tama'nina in each position of our salah in order for our salah to actually be valid. Right? So if I am not standing properly, standing straight up properly, and resting, really resting there and finding tranquility in all of my bones and my muscles and my tendons while I'm reciting from what I know of the Quran for my Fatiha and the surah that comes after it. And then if I'm not finding tranquility, if I'm not at rest at the position of ruku', and then again, I'm not at rest in the position of standing back up, that I'm just breezing through these motions, right? Going up and down when I go into sajda, like pecking down the ground very quickly and not even getting through, discounting, even 3 Subhana Rabbiyal A'las, just even one, if we can get through even one. If I'm not having that those individual moments, those individual instances of tranquility, then how is it that in a total of 2 or 3 or 4 rak'ahs that I'm praying, that I'm going to have an overall sense of tranquility and peace and serenity in the entirety of my salah, right? And then how is it then when I end my salah, that I can say, with true conviction, that what we're taught by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to say, Allahumma anta salam wa minka salam, tabarakta rabbana wa ta'anita ya dhal jalali wal ikram, right? Allahumma anta salam, that, oh Allah, you are peace, that you are peace, and wa minka salam, that from you comes peace, right? This was the response of Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha when Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam, he came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to inform Khadija radiallahu anha, that tell Khadija radiallahu anha that Allah sends to her his salam, right? And Khadija radiallahu anha is such a profound woman, such a profound figure. And if you look at the sort of thought process that she even had, she said, how can I return in her internal thought process? How can I say, wa alayka salam, ya Allah, because Allah is salam. So she said this, Allahumma anta salam wa minka salam wa ilayka yarju salam, right? That, oh Allah, you are salam, right? Because of the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as-salam. This is the profound thinking of Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, and this is where we get this supplication for after our salah. So moving into a couple of points of how can we achieve, or how can we try to achieve this sort of contentment, and how can we sort of try to achieve this tama'nina, this sense of tranquility and serenity. So first and foremost, my teacher and mentor, he mentioned, if you are not feeling the salam, right, he says, then you're not doing enough dhikr. That if we're not feeling the salam, if we're not feeling the peace, then that means that there's a deficiency in our dhikr, right? And the solution to fixing this, right, we have to recognize a problem. And in every sort of situation, in order to, when we identify a problem, that we have to actually acknowledge that we have that, in order to then move to the next step in finding out solutions for it, and then acting upon those solutions. So if we don't recognize that we don't have the problem in the first place, then how can we ever move to finding a solution for it? So he says, then, if you think about it, right, if you're not doing enough dhikr, then if you think, oh, how is it going to, if I just increase my dhikr from saying, just doing my regular salawat to making some regular, saying Allah, or saying la ilaha illallah, or saying subhanallah, any of the adhkar that we have, if I just spend an entire day doing it and I don't feel it immediately, what he says is it takes persistence, one, and one needs to give it time, right? That it's not going to happen immediately. You're not going to go from 0 to 100, right? You're in 2.3 seconds. You're not going to be able to put the pedal to the metal and just fly through toward it. It's going to take time, right? This is something it's a process building exercise, right? And the believer should make dhikr abundantly. Right? The believer should make dhikr abundantly. And he gave the example of when vegetation needs to grow on the earth. It's not beneficial that if you ever have planted a flower or vegetables or anything in the ground, if you're trying to take care of your lawn, if you just plant it all and then you throw a whole bunch, if you pour and dump a whole bucket of water on it, then you're going to drown the seeds that are in the ground. right? But what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does, his sunnah, the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that he lets the rain down gently so that it sits on the ground and then it slowly gets into the ground and it nourishes the earth, and then after some time, then the seed, blossoms underneath the ground. It has its roots and it starts to come out above the ground, and then you can actually see the fruits of it. You can actually see the flower. You can actually see the vegetables. You can actually take benefit from it. We can actually see that visible benefit. What we don't see is how deep the seed is planted and how long it can actually take. We know that certain, different sorts of species of seeds, they take different times to actually germinate into the ground, right? And take root. The next he says is shukr, right? To increase our shukr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ, that if we have shukr, if we have gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we acknowledge and realize the things that he has given us, then we'll actually be increased in that. And when we have this mentality of recognizing that which is there for us already, then that will increase us in being able to recognize that which we are continuing to get. So if I have $100 in my checking account and I'm thankful and appreciative of that, then every single new income that I get, it shows me to be more appreciative of that when we're actually thankful about those things. Right? The next he mentions is to have zuhud, to have non-attachment. And this is from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And sometimes this concept becomes a little bit misunderstood. It's not to completely rid ourselves completely of all objects, right? In a possession sort of sense, but rather it's to rid our hearts of the desire for those objects, the desire for the things of the dunya. So if we separate that in our mind, and if we're able to understand, I can have a lot of things, but they shouldn't be in my heart. So the state of my heart should be the same. I should be content, I should be happy, and I should be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether I have a lot or I have a little. Because in essence, what really matters is the way in which my view of those things is. Right? The fourth thing that he mentions is to keep good company. And he gave, the example of the Prophet ﷺ when he gave the hadith of the good friend and the bad friend is like the example of the perfume shop owner and the blacksmith. Right? There is nothing. He's not the Prophet ﷺ. We have to understand very clearly that he's not necessarily making a judgment statement about these two professions, but he's saying that if you were to think about a good friend in the same way that you think about a perfume dealer, that if you are going to go to the perfume dealer's shop, and even if you don't buy anything, then at least you will come out smelling. Maybe he will gift you some of that, or maybe you'll come out smelling nice. But if you spend a lot of time with a blacksmith, if you spend a lot of time with someone who has to work outside and gets, dirty and sweaty, then what will happen is that inevitably, when you go there, that what will happen is some of that will rub off on you. In the same way, right, if we keep good company, then the good habits of those people will rub off on us, and the bad habits, right, will in the same way of bad company will rub off on us. And it's a really problematic statement nowadays. A problematic way of thinking when people don't think that the company that they keep matters to them, because they don't think that they're affected. Because the only way that they see that an effect takes place is by some sort of tangible effect. Right? We don't know the state. We don't even know the states of our own hearts. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the states of our hearts. So if we were to say that, it doesn't matter with whom I keep company, that it doesn't matter if such and such a person is smoking, or if such and such a person is swearing all the time, right? Or if such and such a person just wastes all of their time. And I say, well, it doesn't rub off on me because I don't smoke, right? Then it's a problematic statement, because we don't know what else is happening. We don't know what else is happening on a metaphysical realm. And if we're limited by this material realm, then we're just limited in our understanding of the way in which causes and effects happen. And the last thing that it will mention for this is, and in the list of things that my teacher had mentioned about multiple ways of finding contentment, is engaging in acts of compassion towards creation. Right? In engaging in acts of compassion towards creation, then we find the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala present. Right? As the hadith goes of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ar-Rahimun yarhamuhumur Rahman, ارحموا من في الأرض يرحمكم, and in riwayah يرحمكم من في الأرض من في السماء. And so the Prophet ﷺ said, the most merciful, the merciful people, those who show mercy, the most merciful shows them mercy. And then he commands, he gives an order, he gives an injunction, he gives an imperative statement, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, have mercy towards those things which are on the earth. Then the one in the sky, the one in as-sama, will have mercy upon you. That there's a direct correlation or relationship, that if you are merciful, if you show compassion to the things that are around you, then the direct effect of that will be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have mercy toward us. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst them. The last points that I wanted to actually leave us with were, now if we know these things, if we've taken these 5 things of, ways of possibly achieving contentment, right? What we have to think about is, what is the ultimate goal, and how can I actually build upon this? There's a very important hadith that highlights the importance of knowledge. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man sanaka tariqan yaltamisu fihi ilman, sahalallahu lahu bihi tariqan ila al-jannah." That he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whoever sets out on a path, trying to acquire knowledge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes easy for that person, through that striving and struggling for that knowledge, a path toward Jannah. Right? So if we think about, there's all of these things that I can busy myself doing, right? I have the end goal of what I want to get to, and then I have some time, I have some extra time. The time is the summertime for young people, and we're off of school, that I have a lot more time. And then if I'm someone who has a more lenient job in terms of how I'm working, I have maybe a little bit of extra time. What is it that I'm benefiting from that time, right? If all I'm doing is just focusing on immediate pleasures, immediate things that I think will provide me with contentment, but they're actually just momentary joys, momentary things of happiness, then that's not actually providing me with contentment. That's not something that's everlasting, right? There's a difference between contentment and happiness, and that's something that we don't have the time to get into, unfortunately. But we see that we should be using the time, whatever time that we have, in trying to have that pursuit of knowledge, in trying to acquire a new skill, a new task. And the most important of things is to acquire knowledge that can be put into practice. Acquire knowledge, specifically when it comes to things of the deen, to put into practice, and how to put it into practice properly. We have the beautiful story that we read every single Friday, in part of Surah Al-Kahf, right? The second to last story that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Kahf, between Musa and Khatira alayhi salam. That Musa alayhi salam, the backdrop of the story, where we've mentioned this many times, I know I've mentioned this a number of times, is that he was asked by one of Bani Israel that who is the most knowledgeable human being, right? And Musa alayhi salam, being the Nabi, being the Prophet at the time, he said, I am. Of course I am. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he showed him, right? He directed him to Khidr alayhi salam, and showed him that there was someone more knowledgeable. And what did Musa alayhi salam do? Although he already had all of these years of knowledge and of tarbiyah, right, and of nubuwah, he had prophethood, he had this character building for years, and he was already a prophet of Bani Israel, one of the greatest nations, that he still had something to learn. And Musa alayhi salam was haris. He was really after, there's someone who knows something more, I'm going to go after it. I'm setting off on a path of knowledge, right? And thereby, even if I don't completely understand, that struggle to try to acquire is what's important. That struggle to try to acquire is what's important. And so in doing that, the struggle to try to improve oneself is what's really important, right? If we say that to ourselves that, I'm just going to stay the same, I'm fine the way that I am, that's a very problematic statement. Imam al-Junayd, Imam al-Ta'ifatain, Imam of the two paths, he said, and this is the thing that I'll leave us all with, he says, a faithful and truthful person changes states at least 40 times in a day, while a hypocrite remains the same for 40 years. So if I look at my own lifespan, if I look at how long I've been living, if I haven't changed the way that I am, if I haven't improved in some way, shape, or form, right? If we just take the last few months, for example, if I haven't changed in some way, shape, or form, increasing my knowledge, increasing my character, increasing my ibadah, increasing something which is of benefit to myself and or to others, then what category do I fall into? Do I fall into the category of people who are true and faithful and who sincerely seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who sincerely seek the rida of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that we can have tama'nina and sakina? Or are we people who we're fine the way that we are and we're just going to stay that same way? We're just going to stay that same way. So the way that I am at 20 is the way that I am at 60. The way that I am at 10 is the way that I am at 70. Even if I'm 60, 70 years old, and if Allah is granting me a life that's going to go into 80, 90, 100, if I'm the same person that I am at 70 years old, and then if I'm the same person at 71 that I was at 70, right? That's a problematic position to be in, because a Muslim, a mu'min, a believer, a truthful person, a faithful person, someone who has wafa, someone who has loyalty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, someone who has sincerity towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is going to be someone who always finds something that upon which they can improve. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us people who first and foremost recognize the issues that we have and then set about on a path of knowledge to try to figure out what we can do to change our condition for the better. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those people who constantly change our states such that eventually the goal is to have the rida, to have the contentment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and thereby we will be content in Jannat al-Firdaus al-A'la. نقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين. آخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you, Bilal. With that, we'll be closing our.
Inshallah. All right. Assalamu alaikum.